Hi US, this is CMA Venkateshwarlu. I'm BSc MCOM FCMA. My YouTube channel is Venkat Manikyala. My main motto of this YouTube channel is to know each and every person in simple language for accountancy subjects. I request all of you to like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to discuss about the subsidiary books. The subsidiary books, these are also called as an version of books of entry. Like we know that generally we do general entries in the books of general book, right? That is in day to day whatever transactions we write chronological orderly. We are going to generally we write in a general book, day wise, right? In turn, what we do that we write each and every entry and we post to these entries to the ledger book, right? So like that, whatever we write, all general entries we are used to post to the ledger accounts, and all the business transactions we are writing at one place, that is called journal. So if it's a small business organization, or even though it's a big organization but transactions are very minimum, then we can maintain each and every transactions as a simple journal. But whereas for the big organizations, like transactions also more and more in repetitive in nature, let us say. So when it is repetitive in nature, so it's not possible to maintain a regular journal. Then we found alternatively subsidiary books, right? So this is an alternate to the general, right? Not a ledger and everything. Only subsidiary books are alternate to the general maintenance. That is an books of original entry. This is also books of original entry, right? So it is also known as a practical system of accounting or English system. Subsidiary books are cash book, purchase returns book, sales returns book, bills receivable, and bills payable, general proper. These are all the total eight subsidiary books. So when we write a general, we write a single, right? So whereas for this is it's nothing but an work allocation to the individual persons. Like one person maintains cash book, the other person maintains purchase book, and like that, eight books prepared by the different persons. It's like a work allocation, right? The cash book, we have a cash book, a single column, double column, and triple column. That we'll discuss later. Purchase book is maintained for the only credit purchases, whereas cash book is maintained for all transactions, whether that is in purchases or sales or asset purchase, bills are paid or bills received, anything or whatever the cash transactions takes place, that we write in cash book. But whereas purchase book only writes when we purchase on credit basis, right? Purchase returns book, that is only when we purchase are not good or something, some reason we return to the seller, so that we write in the purchase returns book. Sales book is also purely credit sales only we write. If it's an cash sales, that we write in the cash book, right? Sales returns is also same. So when the customers returns the sales to us, that we write in the sales returns book. Bills receivable, so these are purely and documents. It's payable after some time. So when we sell the goods, our debtors gives the bills receivable, that we write in the bills receivable. The bills payable, whatever we give to the creditors, that we write in the bills payable. General proper, it's like an original general, whatever we write, no alternate to these subsidiary books, original whatever we write, it looks like that. So whatever is not possible in all these subsidiary books, 7 subsidiary books, the remaining all entries which we are going to write in the general proper. So in general proper, what we write, for example, asset purchased, not for cash. If it's in cash, asset also we write in the cash book. If we credit asset purchase, then we write in the general proper. Let us say opening entries, closing entries, there is no cash involvement, and there is no specific book is there for that. So that we write in the general proper. Now each and every book we now we write a pro formas, right? So cash book, as we said, there are three cash books. One is in single column, double column, and triple column. Even though we are learning triple column and double column like this is an academic purpose, it's okay. Otherwise, in general, practically, what we do is each and every, let us say, cash column, bank column, discount column, we prepare separate books. But anyhow, as far as academics are concerned, we maintain single, double, and triple column, right? That we are going to learn now. Single column cash book. It's a book, not an account. See, it looks like this. It looks like this. What it is showing? Let us say it's in one page. Let us suppose this is an entire part of the page. So this is an debit side, this is an credit side. It almost looks like an account, right? So here it's an amount column. This is also an amount column, right? So this is a date column. Here it's a date column, right? Date column. Here it's a ledger folio. It's in ledger folio, right? Date, particulars, ledger folio. This ledger folio like this we write in the general, not in the ledger. In regular ledger we don't write as a ledger folio, right? Amount, again date, particulars, ledger folio, amount, right? It's a cash book. It's not a cash account. It's a cash book. Cash book, difference between cash book and cash account is everything looks like the same, but this is a day-to-day transactions we write. In turn, again cash account we separately maintain, right? Okay. So the pro forma for cash book single column is looks like this. So whatever we receive, all the receipts we write in the debit side. In certain books, what they write, instead of writing in particulars, they write as in receipts, right? This side they write as in payments. Everything is also right. This is a more reasonable, right? This side is in receipts, that side is in payments, right? Here also we use to and by like that as a ledger account. Here also we use receipts. Let us suppose we have received capital, right? It's a cash transaction. Whatever the cash transaction, that we are supposed to write in the cash book, right? So let us say we received on 1st April 2020, we received capital. So we write as in to capital 1 lakh, right? Whereas in general we write debit and credit, but whereas when we maintain subsidiary books, we write at a time only we write only one transaction, even though that next time it becomes a double entry. Because of cash book, subsidiary books, we are not deviating the double entry system. We are maintaining the double entry system. But subsequently, when this transfer to ledgers, it automatically follows that method, right? So this is a capital receipt. Let us suppose we purchase goods, right? We purchase goods for cash. So when we purchase the goods, we are supposed to pay the amount, right? So in that way, let us suppose on 2nd April 2020, we purchased by purchases account. It's an account. It's also capital account. Let us suppose we purchase for 20,000, right? So like this we are supposed to write on the, it's a payment, right? That's the reason we are writing credit side. Here also see two capital and debit side we have written, by purchase, credit side we have written. It's also everything looks like account, but don't confuse with an account and book, right? So let us suppose we sold the goods for cash. If it's a credit, we don't write in the cash book, right? Let us suppose we sold the goods for cash. Let us suppose 5th April 20, we sold the goods. Because of sale of the goods, we receive cash, right? So sales we receive, let us suppose 30,000. So this is how cash book goes on writing based on the date wise. Whatever the receipts date wise, whatever the payments date wise, on chronological order we are going to write all these receipts, right? Receipts and payments. Let us suppose almost it near to that, to the account. Now we see how the double column cash book looks like. This is a single column. We can say in bracket we can write as a single column. This is also for academic purpose. The next one is in double column, let us suppose. This is an equal part we are doing. Then double column means we require two amount columns, right? And also one ledger folio and date, right? Here also date and two columns and one ledger folio, right? So here it's an date. Here also same debit and credit. Particulars, or we can say receipts, ledger folio, discount. In double column, what are the columns we have? One is in cash column, another in discount column. Discount, and this is in cash. Date, payments, ledger folio, discount, and cash, right? Cash book. This is also we call double column. Also we call as a cash book only. Cash book, it's a double column. Double column, right? Here what we write here, why we maintain double column instead of single column. The advantage for this is an discount. Let us say when we given cash discount to someone, or we receive cash discount from someone, instead of maintaining discount separately, right, we write in the same book. So that's the reason we maintain discount column also, right? For example, let us say we sold the goods, right? We sold the goods, and they are supposed to pay 50,000 to us, right? So they can pay after 2 months. This is what on credit period we have given. But let us suppose we require funds and they also have funds. So when we request the customers, they have paid before these 2 months. So for that, what is an advantage for us? For early payment, we can save certain interest. Instead of getting funds from the bank, we can directly utilize these data. So what is the advantage for them? Instead of keeping the idle amount, they can give and they can have some discount. So both a win-win situation. That is the reason generally we go for discount, right? So let us say when 50,000 is payable, but we say 500 will give as a discount. Then 49,500 they'll give. 500 we allow as a discount. Ultimately, customer is supposed to clear. I mean, customer account must be supposed to clear within 50,000, but cash we get to 49,500. The discount is an 500, right? So then it's in a cash receipt, right? So that's the reason we have to write it on the receipt side. Let us suppose on 6th April 20, we have received cash towards this debtors from the debtors. Then what do you write? Two debtors. Two debtors. How much they have debtors given? 49,500 in cash and 500 is in discount. Ultimately, debtor is to be created with how much? 50,000, right? So, but discount is 500, cash is in 4,500, 49,000. So, discount is 500, cash is in 49,500. In total, see, in total debtors is in 50,000, right? This is an one scenario we can have in the double column benefit also. So this is the benefit, right? Let us suppose creditors. We are supposed to pay 20,000 to the creditors, right? This is also same scenario. Let us say we have so many funds and keeping idle, and they also they are in the requirement. In that case, what we do? We get an discount. So let us suppose 19,800 we are paying, but our entire credit is clear with this. So that means 200 we are getting as a discount, right? It's an income for us, right? This discount is an expense for us. This income is this is 200 is an income, right? So in that case, when we are paying 20,000, so let us suppose on 7th April 20, we paid to the creditors by creditors. Creditors, how much we have paid? 19,800 cash we have paid and 200 discount we allowed. Total creditors will be debited with a 20,000, right? So the benefit here in the cash book is here that column is not there. In your only we can write debtors as in 14,500. Again for 500 rupees we have to write separately, right? So this we cannot write. This 500 we cannot write here the cash book. That we are supposed to write in another one. That is in last one general wrapper. Instead of maintaining these two, at a time we can write. That's the benefit of a cash double column. That's the reason we maintain cash book double column, right? So as usual, this is also common. Let us say there is no discount also, we write capital received and directly in the cash column we write. Each and every transaction is not required to have a discount column, right? So this is a double column. Let us see triple column, how it looks like. Triple column cash book. This is in center one, right? We require three columns. And ledger folio as usual, date column. It's in date column. And three amount columns. And ledger folio. This is also having a debit and a credit. We write as a cash book, triple column. What are the triple column means? Date, receipts, ledger folio. It's an, see here, it's an discount as usual, and the double column discount, cash, and also bank. That means whether we make an made in cash transaction or bank transactions, right? All those covers here only. This side, date, payments, ledger folio, discount, cash, bank. So this is how we are having in three columns. What are the three columns? One is a discount column, cash column, and bank column. So either it's in cash transactions or bank transactions, either with discount or without discount, we write in this box, right? So let us suppose, as we discussed here, in this case we received cash. So because of cash, we have written the cash column. Let us suppose they have given check. Then what we did, the same transaction. The same transaction, let us say it's a check they have given. So for that we take a different example. 1 lakh they are supposed to pay, right? So for that we have given 2000 discount we have given. That means 98,000 cash they check they paid. We have given 2,000 rupees to discount, right? So if that is the case, let us suppose on 8th April received from 2 debtors discount. How much we have given? 2,000 discount we have given, but we have not received any cash, but we have received check. That is in the bank column, 98,000. See, this is the benefit of triple column. Let us say if we only maintain cash book double column, which in bank transaction and also discount, then we are supposed to write in the bank book, and also separating the general proper, we are supposed to write discount entry separately. So instead of that, what we do, we write in the one book, single book. That is a triple column. This is how total cash book, 3 cash books we maintain. One more cash book is also there for the petty expenses, right? That is called petty cash book. That also we will see after this. So I think everybody is clear about these cash books of 3 cash books, right? In exam we find these separate 3 cash books, and whatever I say, the other one is that is a petty cash book. That is petty cash book means it's not all cash transactions we are not writing here, there. That is a separate lesson, right? That is a separate question we get. So petty cash book is a cash book for the petty expenses, not an all expenses and incomes. So for petty expenses, for the EMS, generally we'll give some amount to the clerk, and unless that is an completely expenses incurred, we again we recoup that amount. Let us suppose every month we give 2,000 rupees. So after within that month also they can spend that amount, again they can recoup up to the 2,000. That is called petty cash book. Petty cash book looks like this. Petty cash book look like this. Here it's an we have so many columns in this petty cash book. See, it's in receipts. Receipts here it is not having a debits and credits, right? It's in petty cash book. Petty cash book. Receipts amount we write, and a date on which date it is received, and particulars. It's nothing but an payments. We can say it's an payments, and this is an amount. What is the amount? Payment amount. So this is also, see, what about this? Detailed expenses. These are all we write the whatever payment amount that we write here in total. So what for this amount, that we given details like this. In generally, one clerk, what for they generally maintain in office, whoever comes, we offer some tea or coffee or biscuits, or let us say some conveyance charges or postal charges, like that. These are all petty kind of things. Petty kind of things that we write. That is, let us say, postal, right, and hospitality, then conveyance details. Here these are all the details. So like this, let us suppose on the starting of the month, 1st April 2020, we received 2000 rupees, right? We received 2000 rupees, right? So on 2nd April 2020, we paid. What for we paid? We paid. Instead of writing your payments, it's better to write in the petty cash book as in particulars. Particulars is a right word for the petty cash book, right? So here is an impressed received. We can write a particulars like this. What for this? This is an 2000 is an impressed received, right? So on 2/4, what we have expenses, let us say we pay for postal charges. Postal charges. Let us suppose 200 rupees we have given as in postal charges. In amount column we have to write, but in the details column also, in the postal column we have to write 200. Right? In the details column we have to write postal expenses as a 200 rupees. Let us suppose on 3rd April, conveyance given to some guest. Let us suppose 300 rupees we have given as a conveyance. Where is the conveyance column? So here nothing is there. Conveyance column we have 300 rupees, right? So like that goes on, right? We write an expenses, and one day what we do, we total all these things. When we total all these things, 500 rupees, right? The balance is 2000 minus 500. The balance amount is 1500 rupees. Balance is 1500. Details, when we write a details, postal is in 200, is nothing, is 300. Right? These totals, details also tally. Why maintain all these details? Because directly to the postal account we can transfer this 200 rupees. Directly to the conveyance account we can transfer this 300 rupees. And hospitality expenses account we can transfer whatever amount we have here. Right? For this purpose we maintain petty cash book. This is the purpose of the petty cash book, right? So like this, we have till now how many accounts, how many books we have lent? We lent 4 books in single cash book. We have 4 varieties of books. Those are cash book, single column, cash book, double column, cash book, triple column, and petty cash book, right? So 4 varieties of books we have purchased, we have lent in cash book, right? This is the one substitute book. The other one is a purchase book. So purchase book, it's very simple to write. Only credit purchases we are going to write here, right? So in this, the pro forma looks like this. It looks like this. This is an entire page. Let us suppose this is an entire page in this. First one is an date, right? First one is an date. Then we write as in particular. Last one is an amount. Last one, from last we have to come back because particulars we can leave whatever is required, right? Then because these are all the purchases, invoice number we will have, and also ledger folio. So the ledger folio we write, these are all the comes under the particulars, right? There is a purchase book. Purchase book. This is in purchase book. Here there are no debits and credits. Here is an date, particulars, inward invoice number, inward invoice number. What does that mean? Inward invoice means whatever we receiving, we are receiving the invoice, right? So that invoice number, and again ledger folio, amount. Let us suppose we purchase from X. We purchase from X for cash. Then in purchase book we are going to write, because that goes and sit in the cash book, right? Let us suppose we purchased goods purchased from let us say Vikrant on 4th April 2020. We received from Vikrant. We write as in Vikrant. Invoice number, let us suppose 30 of 2020. Ledger folio is in whatever the page number we write in the ledger. Amount, let us suppose 50,000. We purchased goods for rupees 50,000 from particular creator, right? So let us suppose we purchase another goods from on 5th. Right? This is from, let us say, Shiva. From Shiva we purchased some more goods, and invoice number would be 25 of 2020, right? It would be 60,000. So like that, whatever great purchase we make, all the great purchase we are goes on writing, right? After, let us say, what is the main benefit of this is after writing all these purchases at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, or at the end of the month, based on the convenience, right? So we total it. It's a total of this is 1,10,000. This 1,10,000 directly we take into the purchases account. It's a very simple and it's a very easy to post, right? In purchase account we post this, and it should be completed double entry, no? So one debit we made in the purchase account as in 1,10,000. The equivalent credit is also required, right? So then we go to Vikrant account. We maintain Vikrant account as an account. Ledger account we maintain debit and credit. Vikrant account, and all these columns performance we follow. In Vikrant account, what we do? We credit him with 50,000. Saying that purchase book. We received this data from the purchase book. This is whatever the page number of this ledger account that we write here, right? This is the page number of this. This is what a ledger folio means, right? So we go to one more account, Shiva account. Then we also say maintain. We credit him with 60,000, right? Whenever we pay debit, right? This is what is the benefit of the purchase book, right? So purchase account only single. It can be a date based on our business and business information requirement. In generally, it's a big business. We write device. We post device, right? So there is no hard and fast rule that only day wise we have to post, or week wise or month wise, like that, right? So this is an cash book, purchase book. think you are getting clear, right? Then we go for purchase return book. Purchase return book is also, we can say, in other words, we can say purchase book, purchase returns, sales returns, bills payable. All these 6 books are having the same pro forma, right? All these 6 books are having the same pro forma. This is also same date. Purchase returns book, right? So date column we have, and from here we'll come back amount, right? And the ledger folio, and this is what is very much important, particulars, what's in ledger folio, right? So what we have to write here, previously for purchase book we have written inward invoice number, right? Whatever invoice we receive because of purchases, that we have written there. But what we have to write here, purchase returns, that means we purchase from some let us say Vikrant, and we are giving it back to the Vikrant, right? Because goods are not up to the mark, right? So when we give it to the back to the Vikrant, then what we do, we raise a debit note, right? Already we have created the Vikrant, right? So now we debit the Vikrant. That's what we giving an information to the Vikrant, saying that it's a debit note. So when the purchase returns are there, then debit note number, right? Debit note number. Let us say we have purchased 50,000 worth of goods. In that we are sending back. Let us say 10,000 we are returning. So on 10th April we are returning the goods. So by saying that Vikrant debit note. Let us say it's our own internal number. Let us suppose debit note number for this is in 5th of 5 of 2020. Amount is 10,000, right? So by seeing this purchase returns book, all the returns we made, all credit purchase returns we made, all the purchase returns we made in this during the day, during the week, during the month, we write here. Again the same thing. After all that, everything is over, then we total it, and this 10,000 we transfer to purchase returns account, and again individually to the creditors we post from here, right? This is what in purchase return book, right? As I said, the pro forma is same to all the books. See here, what I am doing here, only name changing. What are the name changing here? I am doing sales book. Pro forma is same, but almost every pro forma is same, right? Pro forma is same. Here this column is different. This column name is different. Column pro forma is same, but here what we write? Sales book. That means invoice outward. We are sending invoice to outsiders, right? So outward invoice number, right? The remaining everything is the same, right? Date column is same, particular column is same. This some inward, outward invoice or debit note or credit note, like that, it changes based on the book. Ledger folio and amount is remain same, right? So for the sales book, what are the changing here? What is important you have to remember is an outward invoice number, right? You are supposed to remember outward invoice number, right? So for the purchase book, what you are supposed to know? Inward invoice number, right? So purchase returns book, what you have written there? We have written debit note, right? So in the sales return, let us suppose it's an sales book, sales returns, sales returns book. In this book, what we write, what we give? When we sell the goods, we might have already debited that person, right? So now they are returning the goods to us. So that means they are debiting us in their books, but we are supposed to credit that person, right? So that's the reason what we have to write here. What we have to write is an credit note. Credit note number. So whenever we receive, immediately we give a credit note to that particular person, and that number we are supposed to write here, right? So this is a sales returns book. Bills receivable. This is also same, right? The pro forma is same. What do we write here? Bills receivables. Bills receivables. Receivables. Bills receivables book. Right? Bills receivables book. This is also the same date and particulars. And here what it is. What it is? Bills receivable, no? Bills receivable number. The number what we have to write here? Bills receivable number. For each and every document we will have a number, no? That number we are supposed to write. Right? So let us suppose bills receivable. Who gives the bills receivable for us? Who gives? Debtors will give, right? So debtors, suppose instead of giving a cash, they will give this one. So let us suppose on 6th April we sold the goods. So then let us say some X, to X we sold the goods, right? So instead of giving the cash, they are giving the this. So bills receivable number, what it becomes? It becomes as an, when it becomes as an, in this case it invoice, whatever we have given invoice number to the sales, no, that is an outward invoice. Outward invoice becomes the bills receivable number here, right? So or also we can say here, instead of writing bills receivable number and that, we can write here as an outward invoice number, right? So directly we can give that number. So bills payable, this is also same. When we give any bills payable, we only give to the outsiders. Bills payable book. Bills payable book. Whatever we give the, it's an inward. That means when we purchase a good, instead of giving cash, we give bills payable. So for that it's an inward invoice number. In other words, we can say the pro forma for this is an purchase book pro forma is for bills payable. Sales book is for bills receivable. It's more almost same, right? So whatever is not adjusted or cannot be written in all these 7 subsidiary books, for that we are supposed to maintain one more call, that is a general proper, right? It is not a general proper, means it's not in separate one. That as usual, whatever we know as a general, that itself is called as a general proper. Here in this case, why it is a general proper? We are not maintaining the regular general, right? We are maintaining the subsidiary books. In that case only we call it a general proper. So it is nothing but a general only. So how the general looks like? It looks like this. General proper, right? And this, it's a date, whatever the date transaction, it's a date wise transaction, we write chronological order, particulars, ledger folio, debit amount, credit amount, right? Debit amount and credit amount. Here we write the general. Let us suppose we purchased goods for cash. That goes and sit in the cash book. We purchase goods on credit basis. That goes and sit in the purchases book, right? So for all purchase and sales, we don't write here. Purchase returns and sales returns, we don't write here. Wherever the cash involvement is there, that we don't write here, right? So wherever the cash involvement is not there, and wherever the all these other than these 6 items are not there, then only we are supposed to write. For example, for writing that is an, let us say we purchase asset. If it's in cash, it goes and sit in the cash book. If it's in credit basis, there is no book for that, right? Asset we purchased, we cannot write as a purchase book, because purchase book is only meant for goods purchase, right? Not for the asset purchase. So let us suppose we purchased a good asset. Let us say machinery we purchased on 10th April 2020 on credit basis. If it's on cash basis, then it won't come. So machinery account debtor to machinery account debtor to issue account. So whatever the issue account ledger folio number that we have to write here, whatever the machinery account number that we have to write here, ledger folio number, amount, let us suppose we have purchased for 1 lakh, right? And here the same as usual, whatever we follow, that also that we have to follow here. Being machinery purchased on credit basis, right? We have to underline here only to the extent of particulars column. Particulars column only we have to underline. Don't underline to the date column and ledger folio and debit amount, credit amount, right? So this is for some of the entries we write in the general paper. Some more entries like opening entries and closing entries. Opening entries means previous year all the assets and liabilities we carry forward to the this year. So for that we write what are the, let us say, what can you know what is the year-end activities? All the assets and all liabilities we carry forward, right? So let us suppose we are carrying forward all the assets into our business on first date itself, right? At the end of the year, again same, all the liabilities we have to reverse it and all the assets we have to credit it. Let us suppose on the 1st April or 31st March, no, on the 1st April, this is a date is in somewhat clashing, so here we are writing as in 1st April itself. This is also 1st April 2020, right? So we write all the assets as a debit. Let us suppose assets are building account to debtor, and machinery account to debtor, right? And the cash account to debtor. Now all those assets, whatever we write, all the debits we write here, and all the credits. What are the creditors? Capital account to creditors account to loans account, like that, all credits, nothing but it's a balance sheet, right? So all these debits and credits we write here, right? This is what a general proper used for this. So like that, all the entries in an organization it covered. This is what is called a subsidiary books, right? Till now what we have discussed, introduction about the subsidiary books and what are the subsidiary books. Now we'll discuss about the subsidiary books. What are the advantages of subsidiary books? The advantages of the subsidiary books are subdivision of general into subsidiary books. let us say, in general, all the date wise continuously we write in one book, right? Instead of that, what we do is we divide all these general into different books. So that is one of the main advantages, because at a time, whatever the sales we can see, and if at all anything goes wrong in the sales book or purchase book or anything deviation is there, immediately we can find out easily. Otherwise, in the general, we have to supposed to each and everything we have to see, right? So that is one of the major advantage of the subsidiary books. The one more thing is it helps the division of labor. Let us say if the only one general, only one person has to write, and he has to supposed to write continuously, right? When it comes to subsidiary books, sales book one person can write, the cash book other person can write, and the purchase book another person can write. Like that, it divides the work. Right? It divides the work, and labor also we can engage differently. In that way, it helps the division of labor. And also, it's very easy to reference. Reference means, let us say there is some mistake in purchase. Directly we can go to the purchase book and we can see. Let us say there is something wrong in the sales, then we can go for that book. Wherever we find any mistake, then directly we can go and search in that. That is one of the major advantages for this. The other one is a substantial reduction of clerical work. How it works? Actually, it looks different. One way we are saying, and we can engage so many labors at a time, but the other way we are saying it's a reduction of collective work. How it reduces means, so in the general, we have to write all these entries, debit and credit, and being that information, and debit and credit, all these things we have to write, and that we are supposed to transfer to each and every transaction to the ledger accounts. But whereas in this, it's not like that. So let us say purchase book we maintain and we total it on that day or that week and directly post to the ledger account. That's very easy, right? There is not required to write debits and credits here. There is not required to write in being a description everything, right? It's a very simple. Sales received from so and so person, sales sold to so and so person paid and amount, person paid and amount. Nothing is required to debit and credit all these things. Moreover, we can we can reduce the so many errors. A clerk may done so many errors while writing, while posting, or while writing the debits and credits. Also, they may feel it's very hard, and sometimes they may make some mistakes. But that kind of all those kind of mistakes we can reduce from the maintaining the subsidiary books. This is what is everything is about the subsidiary books. All viewers, thank you very much. Thank you, one and all. I request once again to like, subscribe my channel. Thank you.